There is a tremendous amount coming out in the media these days, allegations on all sides about different types of crimes, but particularly about the crime of human trafficking. And there are so many misunderstandings around this issue. So I'd like to just explain a little bit about some of the vulnerabilities that exist and how people get manipulated into these situations. So many of us think it won't happen in my community, that it doesn't affect my circles. But in fact, this crime is really based in exploitation, manipulation in a mental way. There are the physical elements, and we think of like guerrilla pimps that abuse and beat into submission. But a lot of times it's happening by way of relationship building. So what we see it playing out, especially for our youth right now, is relationships are being built between people that are purposefully perpetrating on those individuals, whether they're doing it through social media, sometimes they're doing it through school or community. And since we're not in school right now and may not go in the near future, even in things like community programs where there might be coaches and mentors, but they have the end game of building relationship to exploit and perhaps force these youth, or men and women both, into submission where they exchange their bodies perhaps for some sort of good. So when we think of sex trafficking and human trafficking, we often think of prostitution, and that is a segue. That is one area where there are victims that are then forced into that, but most often they're not choosing that as a line of work. They may actually get involved in that sort of situation because of a real need, a survival technique. Perhaps they ran away from home. The victimization and the violations that were happening in their life left them without a home, without food, without money. So they're just doing something to survive. But what happens is there are people that are preying on those needs and those vulnerabilities. And that's what we see in communities like across the United States, particularly with social media. People are posing to be helpful, to be mentors, to be, an aunt type person or an uncle. And I said aunt, yes, because there are women that are actually the recruiters in these situations. So they build relationship with promises of kind of a better life, whatever that looks like for that individual, maybe a car or a cell phone, maybe even just some cigarettes or a place to lay their head at night. And nothing happens sometimes for the first few days, months, or sometimes even a year. I've seen and been involved in cases where that type of manipulation happened for more than a year before they ever asked that individual to go and perpetrate crimes, like selling or trading their body for goods. I think one of the worst situations that I've seen play out is within families. Young children at risk in homes where there are addiction, poverty, there are needs. Parents are selling or trading those kids for their gain. And for example, one case, I was talking to a teacher who had seen a decline in a young student's academic ability and just in the way they showed up for school every day. So she was watching the student. She had known her for a couple of years. She was in 3rd grade at this time. And one day, her backpack fell off of her chair and a bottle of pills rolled out. So of course the teacher grabbed it, looked at it, realized it was a high-level sleeping type of pill, called in the child welfare system and the police. And what we discovered through investigation, which is what an advocate can do, is sit in on those types of investigations and help the child and the family and help liaison between all the systems. That's one of the things that I get to do in my role. But that the mother had told the child, hey, you're having anxiety around riding the bus, so take one of these pills before you get on the bus after school, but don't tell the nurse because they regulate all that, and just keep them in your backpack and just take one. It'll make the bus ride home easier. And then by the time the student got home, she pretty much would pass out. And believe it or not, Mom was allowing men and women to come in and photograph this child and to have, different kinds of sexual encounters with this child, force this child while the child was incapacitated. And the child would wake up, not really know what had happened, not able to voice what her body was feeling in regards to those things that had happened, so didn't really understand that's what was happening with the decline in her academic ability and then in her just the way she presented at school. And those are the ways that we see it play out that we don't want to believe is happening, but that is human trafficking. That falls under the statutes at a state level and at a federal level for a trafficking situation. It's basically coercing someone through actual force, through mental manipulation, or even through a threat of something that you would do to them or even to a family member, or something that you'll withhold from them then for some sort of gain, perpetrating them for some sort of gain. And so I think we as a community, 2020 has just revealed so many things, and as we're sitting home and not wanting to talk about things like this, but it's important that we talk to our youth about the risks that they have with social media, playing games, playing the online gaming systems where they're talking to strangers and things like that, so that they can be aware of the risks.